Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
Sorry,
Moira, I'll just bring you. You're okay. You're okay, no problem. Good morning, everybody. And on behalf of Killarney Chamber of Tourism and Commerce, welcome to our 7th in a series of webinars designed to try and help you deal with the current crisis. Today's webinar is a briefing from the Chief Executive of Kerry County Council, Moira Murrell. There has been, over the last months, huge work going on behind the scenes. Interagency involving Kerry County Council, Kerry business leaders, Kerry Tourism Industry Federation, Kerry Chambers, Fáilte Ireland, the IT Tralee and others, instigated and headed up by the Chief Executive. Moira will speak to us this morning on some of the outcomes and in particular, Safe County Programme, business supports, opening up the county with COVID-19 restrictions. I'm delighted to welcome Moira this morning, and on behalf of Killarney Chamber of Tourism and Commerce, I wish to acknowledge and thank Moira for the work that is being done on our behalf. As usual, please feel free to use the question box throughout the briefing, and my colleague Niall will facilitate a question and answer at the end of the presentation. Today's presentation will be recorded and will be available later for download on the Chamber's website, killarney.ie/resources. So now it's my great pleasure to hand you over to Moira Murrell, Chief Executive of Kerry County Council. Thank you, Moira.
Thank you, Paul. It's my first webinar, so I think it was a bit over-eager there. So good morning. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Paul. And thank you very much for inviting me. And I must start with an apology. I believe I was come on last week, and unfortunately, I had a mix-up. I mixed it up, and but look, I'm here today. So that's so I suppose I'm squaring it. I suppose I just wanted to bring us back just a few weeks, maybe to the start of the presentation. We'll just move on here. Just if we just move there, Brian, just to the crisis phase, And I suppose we often talk about where we're going to be in 3 weeks' time, where we're going to be in 3 months' time. And I'm working from the premise, if we look 3 months back, we were in the middle of a pandemic. We were expecting very high infection rates. We were expecting our health services to be overcome, and we were really in a state of emergency. And from a local authority's perspective and a local government perspective, we were in the role regionally of coordination, providing support to the HSE, coordinating the works with ourselves as local governments across the region and with An Garda Síochána. Our own selves as a local authority, we were in here, we're looking at our emergency services, our critical services, and we were planning. We were looking at, in the event that there was very high sickness rates, if we had high absentee rates, how would we keep the water flowing, how would we keep our fire services intact, and all those other critical day-to-day services such as sanitation and public health services. And that required huge and enormous planning within the organisation. And we essentially, within the organisation, we redeployed internally within our organisation 250 people. And that was, those business continuity plans are still there, they're still in place. As I'm sure many of the people on here, you did your own business continuity planning at that particular time as well. And so look, I suppose just when we look back at where we were in that state of emergency, I mean, if you spoke to me this time 12 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, we were in the fatality planning. We were providing additional fatality capacity within the county. We also had community support coordination. It was very important that, in the event of very high infection rates, with high levels of people cocooning, with high numbers of people not being able to having to stay in their houses, that there was a very strong, and you will be aware of the community call and the community support network. And again, that was very much a one county approach, bringing together all the main players in community right across the county. And it was absolutely astonishing to see the county coming together to support the vulnerable and having a planned approach on how we could reach out to the community. That community call centre, it's still in place. The community interagency is still in place. There's still really good work happening there. But of course, the requirements on that, thankfully, haven't been at this stage what they were at the beginning. I suppose at one stage we were getting 120 calls a day into that community support call line. We had weekly council briefings. We felt throughout this pandemic it was really, really important that there was proper oversight, that our members were had the information, and that continued right through. Now we're moving back to physical council meetings, thankfully, and the normal run of business is resuming. And also those are role in supporting the national messaging. So I suppose just the next phase as we're coming through, Brian, if we can move to the next slide, as we're coming through the crisis and we're managing the reopening. And I think it's something, you know, the Taoiseach said, you know, it is more difficult to reopen than it was to close down. Ourselves as a local authority, our opening of our offices physically, that was in phase 4. That may well come back through the public health guidance to phase 3 of opening. We're watching that one very closely. We've had very, very high levels of engagement with the organisation, albeit that our doors were unfortunately not open to the public, but we've had huge engagement through phones. Online has really, really taken very strong activity and interaction with the local authority. In phase 1, our roads programme came back, the housing programme came back, housing construction, and now we're at a stage where about 90% of our services are back and running. So look, I suppose we now find ourselves in a position with say things like the roads programme where we've lost 6 weeks of activity. So we're under ferocious pressure now to get our roads programme for the year completed. And I suppose just, you know, these are the pressures, and I'm just giving those as examples of practical pressures on the ground as we reopen. And I suppose one of the challenges we have, you know, high numbers in our outdoor workforce as well. The health and safety has to be our highest priority. So we took the view that we would take it in phases and going back to the roads work programme. On one side we have ferocious pressure to deliver here, but on the other side we have to do it safely. We had a huge induction programme. We have working with our staff, we've quite a range of standard operating procedures in place, working and helping the staff to work through those, and also a lot of oversight and compliance. And what I would say to any of you trying to open a business, our experience is it's very important to have the guidance in place, to have the operating procedures in place, to spend the time on induction with staff, because what we found is that we had to go back and re-induct staff, you know, where there were particular issues, and also that oversight and people knowing that there is some oversight in particularly where staff, you know, particularly that area of social distancing, it can be difficult in a workplace, and certainly just to get that right and to get the culture right and the messaging across the organisation. And I say that as just a point as I'm on. So as we were moving through the pandemic, and I suppose coming out of the absolute emergency phase where we were in that stage of you know, I suppose really critical emergency planning, there were a few things that were very, very important for us in working through this, and this is the phase we're in now, is that we had to do this in a joined up way. We had to do this as a one county way. The county had to come together. Not any one of us have the answers. We had to come together. We had to go together, and very, very important at this time, we have to coordinate our activities. So as Paul mentioned there is an all-county forum. We have the Mayor, Niall Kelleher, as the elected representation. I sit on it from the local government perspective. We have our economic recovery team present on that forum as well. We have industry, we have Charlie McCarthy from Libre, we have Dennis McCarthy from FESCO, we have Frank Hayes from Kerry Group, and we have Ed Harty as well from Dairy Master. So, you know, we have the big industries represented. We have the chambers represented from the county, and indeed Paul sits on that group on behalf of Killarney Chamber as well. We have KTIF, Pat O'Leary and Patrick O'Donoghue are represented, and we have the third levels. We have both ETB and the Munster Technical University now, quite a little bit ahead and call it that. And we have Bernadette Randalls from the IHF. And we have the Kerry SciTech, which is the Science and Technology Cluster, represented on that, and the hubs that we have, the remote working hubs in the county. So as you can see, we have a fair group and a lot of insight and a lot of people who can help us through in a coordinated way. And we have a lot of different strands, and it's a really good forum for us to coordinate in how we're doing our business. As a local authority, we also established the economic recovery team. We brought a group of the staff together whose sole purpose now was to focus on these initiatives around the economic recovery, and they will stay in place during this phase of the pandemic. We also have the establishment of the COVID-19 response team. I have Frank Hartnett, senior engineer, who is heading that up, and that's very much looking at safe destination, the physical works and the physical interventions that we need around the response, and very much as well part of the looking into our own business as a local authority, looking internally into our business and how do we open up safely. You know, how do we open our offices safely? I talked about opening our works, outdoor works, how we do that safely. And again, you know, in a very complex organisation with an awful lot of strands to it and an awful lot of various sectors to strands to what we do, it's very important that we have that coordinated, and Frank and his team have done ferocious work in relation to that. And also I talked about the interagency around the community call. That structure continues to be in place and is a very, very important one as we move through this phase and into the future. So I suppose just the next slide there. Thank you. So look at this working in partnership. I've just set out, I think Pat might have used a version of this last week, Pat O'Leary's presentation. So I think it's great to see we're using, you know, that we're showing the same structures, because I think it does send a very strong message of how well we're working together, how strong the coordination is and how strong our linkages are. And certainly the team that sits on top here is the Business Leaders and Interest Forum, for want of a better description of it. And within that, there are three subgroups coming off of that. One is looking at the economic analysis. There's a team around that. One looks at the promotion and the communications in the county, which is really, really critical. And the third is the business advisory team. And I know Niamh would have given a seminar or a webinar here last week and would have gone through an awful lot of the initiatives, the really, really good initiatives coming from that advisory team. The fourth strand here, an awful lot of work is going on with KTIF and Kerry County Council. As many of you here will be aware, around the promotion of the county and the number of initiatives in working through from a tourism perspective. And I put that in because the initiatives, they tie in. Again, it's another sign of coordination, and of course, Fault Ireland will be coming as part of that initiative as well. So that's growing, and there's fantastic work there, and I think it adds to huge strength to the county. And huge comfort to the county. I think that so many of the bodies there are working so closely and so well together. So I do want to acknowledge, you know, the huge work has gone in right across the county, and the very strong coordination between all of these bodies, because I think it's paying dividends at this stage. I'll just go through just a little bit just to talk about the economic analysis team, if I could, Brian, please. That's the report. You'll have heard about the report. We did quite a good bit of publicity around the report. And I suppose when this report was done, and one of the questions, and rightly so, that I was asked around this is, okay, it's great to have the report, and now what? And what we're doing with the research that's being done, we need to have verifiable research and validated research for the county. There's a lot of research in different places, and you know, in an era where we're nearly bombarded by social media and research and statistics, it's very important that local government gives its stamp of approval to research, to say we're willing to stand over this, we're willing to say this is research for the county, and we're working with our partners right across the county to say if you have research that we validate and we stand over, it can become part of our research for the county. And this becomes very important for us, because at this particular time, that report, if it said one thing, and the main message, and you can take everything out of it, Kerry is the most impacted county in the country because of COVID, due to our booming tourism sector. Because of the reliance of the county, we're more reliant on tourism than any other county in the country. That's the reality of it. So, you know, the impact is greatest. Both the Cathaoirleach and I met the Oireachtas members. We were able to put this report on the table that they can take with them to show empirically and aligning itself to a number of the regional authority did an analysis that aligns with this as well, to say, look, this makes a special case. We put in a multi-million application under the urban regeneration for Killarney and for Tralee last week. These are multi-million programs. We had them developed before COVID-19. We decided we would put them in because it's a 7-year vision, and the concept has to be approved, and there's a number of things that are needed for both towns in those applications. And again, one of the cases, and the very strong cases that we made, was on the basis that we are so impacted by COVID, and in a post-COVID world, investment into the county of Kerry is now critical. Obviously, investment into Killarney is very critical at this point, as a town that is so impacted due to the impact on tourism. So look, it's really important, and it's really important, you know, Pat sits on the national body. You know, Pat is armed with this. You know, we have every member and every one of you, you know, you all have your own contacts, your own representative group. Bernadette, who's with the IHF, sits on our group. Bernadette is able to take that to her hotels federation as they try to influence approaches. So again, it's having the evidence. You know, I can't say enough that it's really important that we've a set of data that is validated for the county. The second one, the second team, looking at promotion and communication. Again, I suppose the very important thing here is that we're coordinating our messages across the county. You know, the promoting, look, I'll be going through these again later, but Kerry being open for business, promoting Kerry, you know, particularly the whole thing around the remote working is particularly critical at the moment. And, you know, the very fact that Kerry is open for business, and I might move on, Brian, next you can see the people who are involved in those teams there, and a number of initiatives. There you'll see promoting Kerry as a safe place to live and work and do business. The county from a remote working, second site offices, hub networking, and the longer term and medium to longer term, then the strategy for branding and targeting of the county. And I suppose, again, there's a number of key initiatives coming from that. Look, I'll hit those later, so I'll move on, because look, I'm aware of time and we've a lot to get through as well. So Brian, if I could. So then the third team that's there is this business advisory team. And the business advisory team is really looking at an awful lot of really good initiatives for the county. And again, just looking there at the business support line, to date, that's up, I think, with about 3 weeks. And at this stage, there's been over 500 calls to the county. And what we did with the business support line was we looked at the community line, and we saw how well that had worked, and thought, well, hold on a minute here. If we had a business support line where people could come in and make contact, and I know maybe some of you here have, and it's very important then, because everyone's queries may be different, and maybe because we have so many agencies as a state dealing with so many different aspects of business, it's very important that a query can be made one place, and then that people are at a minimum directed to where they need to go to, and that we can close out that people were dealt with. That, you know, people weren't just waiting here in cyberspace and not being dealt with. So we have got very good feedback from the business support line, and it has been positive. And again, the interagency meet very regularly to review to see how that is operating for me. So you'd have Enterprise Ireland, Fault Ireland, the local enterprise office involved in that. The Business Restart Grant, I know there has been a huge interest in the county, and it's good to see in that we've had over, at this stage, just under actually 1,000 applications. So we do expect early next week there will be, that those grants will begin to open up. So look, I can't give an exact day on that, but certainly the intention would be that it would be early next week. So it's good to see that level there. I know we've got some feedback in relation to some difficulties, or through the elected members have highlighted some quirks in the system, maybe where it's not able to help people, or where it mightn't be tailored exactly to it. So we've certainly been in a position to take those messages back and feed those back in centrally. The training for reopening of retail and hospitality, and there's been a huge amount of work done in this through this group, and I know Niamh would have gone through that with you last week for those of you who were on. But at this stage, with the hospitality, my understanding is there's training being rolled out to 120 staff in the hospitality, linking in with the great work with the ETB and the Hotels Federation. So that's really good to see. And around retail, there's a programme being developed which should be rolled out, as I understand it, next week. So they're really, really good. And I suppose I can't emphasise enough the importance of that and availing of that. And the one thing I would say to people around is, if you are finding with these courses there are things you'd like to see included, or things maybe that you feel could be improved upon, it's really important we get that feedback in, because this is I suppose we're in strange times, and these are a first off, and people are trying them, and people are very open to going back and refining and improving, and it's really, really good. And I just want to acknowledge the huge work of the IHF, the Kerry branch of the IHF there, and also the work of the chambers coming together to work with ETB and ourselves around the whole retail. The Kerry Open for Business initiative, that's a huge initiative, and it's really good to see how well that is going at the moment. At this point in time, we've 376 businesses who've registered on the online directory and the interactive map, and I think that's really, really good. And I think the more we can promote that, and the more we get engaged with that, I think that the better it will be for the county. And also as part of that, I know both the chambers and ourselves have been working very much together around the Open for Business campaign, and with the Kerry Tourism Industry Federation around the whole voucher and gift cards and all of that. So there will be an awful lot of work is ongoing in that space. Again, the whole online for business, I do know at this stage the Business Advisory Group are looking at a portal, so maybe there would be a kind of a look. I'm not a huge person on online, but that there could be like an online shopping mall, so where you have the online directory, but you also have this idea of the virtual shopping mall, and there's a lot of work progressing on that at the moment as well. And I suppose a very, very important one for us then here is the Safe Destination Programme. And I will talk a little bit later about the Safe Destination Programme, but that's a really, really important one for the county. Brian, if I could move on there, please. So I've asked Tomas to come on as well. I know Tomas Hayes would have addressed you previously, but the local enterprise office working with Kerry County Council is a huge resource to the county. And at this stage, I know Tomas, look, did you want to come in just briefly, maybe just around some of the very, really good stuff that's happening there?
I suppose there are quite a number of schemes out there, and again, the schemes change from week to week, but one scheme that has been out there and has had a very strong subscription is a trading online voucher scheme. And again, a scheme, it provides up to 90% of costs, a maximum of €2,500 in terms of website development. And again, it's based on e-commerce activity. I suppose one aspect of the scheme, again, is that it's open to second applications. So people who previously applied, perhaps last year or whatever, can come back in again and make an application. Now, in terms of the scheme itself, obviously, I suppose, as I mentioned, it is heavily subscribed. We have sought additional funding in order to support it, and that work is ongoing. I suppose, secondly, we provide a range of webinars. These are on the Kerry County Council website, and again, linkages back into the local enterprise office. And again, we've seen a move from, I suppose, a number of weeks ago. People were looking at cash flow management. They were looking at continuity plans, business plan preparation. Now there has been a change in terms of the business health and safety. There's been a strong focus on tools for online activity, looking at remote working. And again, over 600 people have booked. Again, Kerry County Council moved very quickly initially in terms of, I suppose, targeting programs, moving the programs from, I suppose, standalone physical programs to webinars, online programs, and certainly we're continuing to evolve and move with those. a lot of what we deliver are taster programs. Ultimately, I suppose from the retail hospitality aspect, as Moira has mentioned there, those programs that are running through the ETB, these programs are more substantial, and certainly we'd encourage people to engage very strongly in those. Mentoring is a vital aspect of what we do, providing that specific one-to-one expertise, advice in terms of specific issues to businesses. Of course, we can develop a webinar and cover range of topics, but there are those individual issues in terms of the business strategy, where it's going, where a business is presently, and again, looking at planning to the future. So I'd encourage people to, go on, have a look at the website. There are booking facilities there. All the programs are being offered free at the moment. And again, as I say, a lot of it is taster programs that lead into the more substantive programs delivered by Education and Training Board and the Institute of Technology. If I might just backtrack a little bit on the Restart grants, which is out there, Moira, I suppose one thing I'd encourage people to do is to ensure that they fill the application forms correctly, because if the application forms are not filled correctly, it leads to issues in terms of processing those applications further down the line. So in completing those applications correctly, make sure your rates number is right, your customer number is right, the name of the business actually applying for the Restart grant. So please ensure that that information is correct, because it allows a little bit more fluidity within the system, allows easier processing of the applications. And again, this is what we're trying to achieve in terms of moving forward. Thanks, Moira.
Okay, thanks, Tomas. I suppose just in filling in the forms, just to say to you as well, there has been a number of forms that haven't come in filled correctly, but if people have any issues at all, will you ring the business advice line and we'll work through the form with people, because I know forms can be intimidating enough in fairness as well. So look, if there are individuals, if you could say that, we would be more than happy to work with people through the form. So, okay, thanks, Tomas. Just say to you, you may have seen that the business that Kerry Coco.ie, that if you do log on to our that if you do log on to our website there, you'll see that we have tried to section and try to make it easier for businesses and citizens to navigate through what it is we're doing at the moment under COVID-19. So you'll see there's an area there for the Restart grant, the support helpline, the Open for Business initiatives here, and the online initiatives that we spoke about. You'll see the webinars and training. Now with the webinars, we've tried to bring together the webinars across the county and some of the really, really good stuff that's there, because it can be very difficult for people to try and navigate different bodies. Is it Enterprise Ireland? Is it the Leo? What is it? And the really good webinars that Vault Ireland have had as well. As I say, the research and surveys are there, the Back to Business, and the interagency, some information there about the interagency forum and what it is all about. So look, again, it's just trying to, for ease of access for people to get in and trying to make I suppose it more dynamic and trying to, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of initiatives, and just trying to bring an order to it. So there's been a lot of work done there by Brian Looney and his team, so just to acknowledge that as well. So just coming to the Safe Kerry, and I suppose really this is really, really important that, there's been a lot of talk about the roadmap out of this, and I suppose Kerry opening up, we're opening up. What will our tourist season look like? What will our retail industry look like? How are we going to manage this? And I suppose the one thing more than any other, and I started at the start by saying we had a huge roads programme to bring in, and a huge housing construction programme. But we took the view we're going to do this steadily and we're going to do it safely, because there's no point in us rushing off to do something where we're not going to do it safely. That's important for our people, it's important for our staff, and it's hugely important for our reputation. And that's one of the things that as a coordinating body has been very important to us, is that our reputation as a county is very, very important. And particularly given the vulnerability of where we are at the moment, given the importance of tourists coming back into our county, it's so important that that we do that in a safe, that safety is clear. And I suppose the messaging around safety and a unified messaging around safety, and that's why it has been such a really good experience to work with all the partners across the county as well around the coordination of the messaging and how we do that at the right time in the right way. And you know, that has really been very strong ethos and really, really important, and will be critical to us, because if we get this wrong, if we get our messaging wrong, if we do our physical works wrong, or if we don't do them right, and if there are going to be images of this county overrun with visitors, without structures, without the proper signage, stenciling, the proper wayfinding, if shops and retail and hotels aren't putting in the procedures, if all our staff aren't aware, then it will impact on our reputation very long term. And I think, you know, that's something we can all accept. So look, it's not easy, and I know grappling with the reopening, I know, you know, I find as a local authority and look at our various business units and what we do, you know, grappling with this new world, be it 2 meters or 1 meter, it's difficult, you know, and it's difficult with you know, in our case, you know, with large staff across a range of services. How do you do that? And that requires an awful lot of focus, and that's why we have the COVID-19 team for the internal organisation particularly in place as well. And I suppose that's the one thing that we felt as an inter-agency and this group coming together, that a safe destination programme would be very important for the county. And that's where we're seeing the training initiatives. So those staff and businesses who have their staff trained here in the county, by the county, have their badge. They have their safe destination badge. You know, that's an assurance. The safe working, I mentioned about the reopening safety. It will be very, very important for everyone in the county that we're reopening safely. And the one thing I'll say, because I know it can be overwhelming, and particularly I would say if the roadmap, and it would appear, you know, listening to the media, that the roadmap will be moved, that phase 3 will become phase 2 and parts of phase 4 will become phase 3, that the map has shifted, and maybe where we're all working to a plan, that plan now has become shortened. So all I would say to people, if you were struggling, if you were grappling, and if you have difficulties, and what is this going to look like, and I need help here, would you ring the business support line and we'll arrange for help for you. You know, Tomas has quite a lot of access to mentoring for people. You know, I really would say, you know, we have really good networks through the chambers, that the likes of the chambers in the county. We have you know, we can, I prefer people to come and let us know if they're having real problems, where we can try and help, as opposed to, you know, feeling that there's no place to go. We'll try and connect you in where you can be helped on that. Safe working, huge, you know, I suppose, opportunity to tell our story now, and that's what the interagency group rightly feel as well, as do our elected members around remote Kerry, that there's a really strong example of how remote working can work in the county. Indeed, a number of the bigger businesses are willing to come and tell the story for the county and how they have moved more or less to large-scale remote working in the county, and how they can manage to do their business successfully in that model, or partially in that model. And again, you know, I think even looking at the portal for the virtual town shopping, looking at the, you know, Tomas mentioned the take up on the online vouchers, seeing the number of did I mention 376 businesses have registered for the online businesses. You know, this is a very quick movement in how we're now flipping more towards the online, and I think we can do this well as a county. And again, it's all under the safety message. The safe communities, that one is critical, and that's why the work with the community and the interagency with the community is so important to us. You know, we have to be aware that as our county gets busier, you know, there will be fear, and there is fear out there that the pandemic, that, you know, there isn't a cure for this. Our levels are very low, you know, and at the same time, you know, what if a phase 2 comes? You know, what is going to happen? And, you know, as the restrictions are opening up, and as our economies are opening up, and our towns and our businesses, again, it's very important that that engagement with the communities continues. So there is a structure where the local development companies and again, the KTIF are involved with this, with our community section here in Kerry County Council, working with the PPN and the various structures like that to again give the assurances and working through issues with the communities. And I think that that's a very, very important part, because, you know, I suppose, you know, we have to be mindful, you know, probably a lot of us have been, you know, either working through this or planning for our businesses reopening through this or whatever, but there is a large part of our population who've been cocooning as well through this, and, you know, who may be in a different place psychologically. You know, we're all in probably different places with this reopening as well. So it's very important, that engagement. I mentioned the safe shopping, and the last point there that I have is the safe streets, safe public areas, and that's critical, absolutely critical. Now, in relation to the safe streets and the safe public areas, we have developed mobility plans for the county, which we brought the MD members, the full council and the MD members by way of briefing last week. They're temporary, they're urgent measures that have to be taken in the physical environment within our streets, within each town, within each village in the county. And I suppose when you have a look at it, and Brian, if we could just slip down, maybe we might take this, you might skip through the next one to the, you skip through the next slide and go on to the next one. Yeah, if you go on just the next one, Brian, that's lovely. And I suppose what we have here are mobility plans, and essentially, above all else, is that our streets, our towns, our public spaces are safe. We did it with the beaches, we did a lot of signage, we had to close our car parks, we had to open our car parks, you know, we had to do that. We did it with some of our parks where we felt there were particular issues, not Killarney because of the national park, but where we had to do a lot of signage and a lot of stenciling on the ground. And in a lot of towns across the county, I suppose the intervention that's required, because the footfall may not be as high as it would be in Killarney, some of the interventions that have been required really is, you know, very clear signage or stenciling, you know, those 2-meter signs you see on the ground, you know, those kind of works. They're, you know, they're visual signage. When you come to Killarney, because of the layout of Killarney, because of the level of footfall in Killarney, because Killarney is Killarney, it's really, really important to us that we have to have first of all, we have to have safe streets, safe areas within our town, and people who come here have to have the sense that there is space and that there's safety as well, and that's really, really critical to us. So we brought in measures in these plans for a period of 3 months. They're temporary, as I say, they're urgent measures. And the one thing I would say to you as well, we are keeping them under constant review, because we don't have the comfort of saying, you know, if it doesn't work, sure, we can tackle it later on. If, you know, we're really keeping a close eye on this, because above all else, safety has to be paramount, and the public safety. And I think for all our saves, for the safe county and this message of safety and ensuring safety and people feel safe, and reputationally for Killarney, it is critical that these plans are in place and that we have a programme. Now, we were working to the 29th of June for having these works in place, so the urgent has even become, I would guess after tonight, probably even more urgent. But look, we as I say, we have advised the elected members on it. They're on our website. I'm going to ask Frank to come in and talk you through the approach at this stage. And we are meeting our members next week, and we will be implementing the measures, you know, where we require these to be done for as I say, for the safety of our town and our streets. So look, Frank is going to go through them with you, and look, I think it's a good, you know, we've tried, I suppose one of the other principles is we're not going to solve all the problems that we ever had in Killarney through these, and that's not the intention. There's no intention to do that. We have a specific problem to solve here for a few months. and that is we have a tour season coming on us. We expect we'll be busy. I know we won't have the bus tours, but you know we will have a high domestic market. We will have people coming into our town, and it's really, really important that that town is the best it possibly can be for people, and that's really, really important. So look, we've tried to be practical, and we've also tried to have minimal impact on the way the town is set out at the moment. Okay, so with that, I'll just hand over to Frank for maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Moira. Okay, Brian, if you want to pull up that report. Okay. Can you see that?
Only in part, I'd say, Frank. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'd say Brian, the screen. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so look, as Moira has said there and has framed the context of this, basically when the roadmap came out there on the 1st of May and outlined the phases, obviously as we went through each phase, the towns of Kerry were obviously going to get busier. Now, having regard to the advice of the public health authorities, and at the moment we're still talking 2 meters social distancing, and it was how to make our streets safe and welcoming. And we carried out surveys on 22 locations in the county, but I'll just concentrate on the Killarney town one here. And what it said was that we would have to ensure 2 meters social distancing, and therefore where you have narrow footpaths, you're going to run into problems, and it's going to result in a reallocation of some road space, be it the parking lane or the traffic lane, or closing down an entire street, to prioritize the safety of the pedestrians and to create the impression in the town that the town is safe and welcoming. So the 3 principles that we applied countywide were safety, and the second one then would be to support economic recovery, and to do this on a phased basis. The methodology that we used was basically to carry out surveys on all the footpaths. Again, as I said, within the 22 towns that we looked at, so there was substantial work done. And in order to achieve the 2 meter social distance requirements, we picked on the footpath anything that was greater than 2.5 meters. And we surveyed all of that in every town and village in Kerry, and we've produced maps to that effect. So what we're concerned about then are the footpaths that are less than 2.5 meters, where it just won't be possible to physically achieve the 2 meter social distancing. We then looked at another parameter, because all this has to be in a balanced and measured way, was the footfall that you would have in our towns and villages. And in a place like Killarney, you know that you're going to have the potential for very high footfall on a lot of the streets there. So where you had a high footfall with a narrow footpath, they were the areas where we required, interventions which would utilize the existing road space. Otherwise, where the footfall was low, we have agreed a set of signage and stenciling that will be used throughout the county. So I'm just flicking through a number of categories here. And sorry now to be rushing it, I'm just mindful of the time. So again, we're talking about signage, and signage where we have banners like that now, and these will be put up. They can't be hindrances in themselves, in order to preserve the width of the footpath. But we'll also have the stenciling that Moira described earlier. And again, we'll be taking a standardized approach across the county so that we don't have a mishmash of different signs all over the place. And these are all reflective of the public health guidelines. So I'll move on quickly to each street, and we'll just show you a map of what I've described there, where we have surveyed the footpaths greater than 2.5, where we've overlaid the high, medium and low footfall. These are the areas then that where you have particular difficulties with narrow footpaths and high footfall. And these are our proposed intervention measures then. Now, I suppose I can go to one there, Plunkett Street. We're all familiar with that, and we know based on the width of trying to get 2.5 meters on a footpath, and obviously trying to get 3.5 meters for a running lane for a road, the width just isn't there in terms of the building line to building line, and we will, as a temporary measure, as Moira pointed out, we will have to close that on a 24-hour basis. Now, the knock on to that is on Main Street. As you go onto Main Street, we wanted to take out then the left-hand turn. There's no longer a requirement then for the left turn from back to Kenmare Place. And the plan then would be to utilize that 3-meter running lane as part of a public realm area. Similarly then on High Street, as you go up, as we know on High Street, it can be very busy up as far as, you know, for example, Penny's shop. So we have a higher footfall rating and a higher categorization. And the different measures then that we intend to propose for there would be to narrow down the running lane of the road, which will then allow us to increase the footpath. In terms of removing parking, that's an option to us. But we want to try and minimize that as well, because obviously parking is very precious in Killarney, and we would only propose to remove it where there was no other option, where we couldn't widen the road and where the footpath was narrow and we felt there was a high footfall, that we would then remove the parking lane and utilize that then as part of the footpath, if you like, that the pedestrians would have the ability to walk then within what is the parking lane. I'll just pick a few other examples. Kenmare Place in front of the town hall. Yes, I've mentioned that we will reduce the road to 1 lane there, and the footpaths will be widened on both sides. And this is shown it graphically then, each intervention per street. As I said, Plunkett Street, there's no choice, you know, to do this safely and to, you know, to keep reiterating that safety is the #1 priority here. We will have to close that on a 24-hour basis. Obviously, deliveries will have to be accommodated, and the detailed design of that is ongoing at the moment. But you can see here on College Street that we can reduce the width of the road. We can move the parking to allow the footpath theoretically then to be widened on the northern side, while still retaining as much parking as we can. If you take Beach Road as a good example here, you have 3 lanes of traffic. Essentially, you have the left turn and the right turn lane, and you have the inbound lane. And we propose to remove one of those lanes and utilize the 3 meters then, distributed evenly then between the 2 footpaths, so you'll be able to increase the footpaths on both sides by 1.5 meters. So they're the physical interventions, if you like, in the town. This shows us the diversions then that would be required because of the closure of Plunkett Street. And then I'll just skip further down, because as I said, we've looked at the other villages and we've produced these reports by municipal district. The next part then is obviously queuing, and you'll all be familiar with all the shops that have opened or have stayed.
Is there something after going in this? Oh yeah, no sound. Huh? No sound.
All right, 1 second.
Sorry, Frank, there's no sound if you can hear me.
I know. I'm
There's
trying
no
to.
sound since the queuing.
Still on, or he's scrolling.
Talking away, is he?
His microphone is still on, so.
Yeah, Frank, if you can hear us, you might just try to reconnect your audio. If you go to the audio and select computer audio again, or you could try and come in using the phone number. We still have your screen, but we can't hear you. Moira, I'll work with Frank to reconnect his audio there. If you wanted to just maybe move on or take any questions and we can patch Frank back in, then
Yeah.
I'll give him a shout.
Okay, that's fine. Look, I suppose really just to say, look, I need Frank to talk, to come back in, but look, really, you just started there to talk about the queuing and the and I suppose, look, also that we will around first of all, it's important we identify the public spaces that are safe and the streets that are safe, and bring that level of space and safety back to the street during this time. And then, of course, we will work with the businesses and the business interests to look at things, then how the street works. You know, there will be obviously requests for tables, chairs, how we use our public spaces, bringing some activity back in there. So look, we will obviously work with the likes of the Killarney Chamber and with the as well around that time. So look, I think at this point I'm just aware of the time. I can stop there if Niall, you wish to bring in some questions or.
Thanks, Moira. So look, if anybody has any questions, could you please type them into the question bar? And I suppose I have two questions here, Moira, first of all, and one is, how do you register for the Kerry Open for Business?
Kerry Open for Business. Okay. I ask Mike Scannell. Mike, could you give some advice there on that? Sorry, I need to put the or Tomas.
Yeah.
Tomas,
Best
would you
place
be
to register is contact the helpline at 1800-807-102, and the team will take your details. And again, we'll revert in terms of taking the information and getting it online.
Okay, so look, I think I don't know what the sound was like there, but to contact the help desk, the number was up there earlier, Tomas. I'll just give it out there again, the number that we had.
1800.
Do you have the number there to hand, Tomas?
Yeah, 1800-807-102.
No. Yeah, so just ring that and we'll work you through it. And the more people that are on it, the better it is.
Okay, and the other question then is the safe. How do we register for the Safe Destination Programme?
Is him unmuted now? Can I?
Yeah, Frank, you're back there.
Yeah,
Okay,
could
sorry,
I just say, look, in relation to this, sorry, Frank, just in relation to the Safe Destination Programme as well, if you want to register, will you contact the business, contact the same number on the same line, and we'll put you in contact with, we'll connect you where you need to be connected, and we'll get that through with you, because we use that line, we wanted that line just to be used for all these kind of queries, route them in there, and we'll find a home for them.
Very good. You'll be glad to hear more. Hold on. I don't have any other questions at the moment.
Okay.
I want to bring Frank back in so to finish the bit
Very
of the presentation.
good. Okay. Thank you.
Frank?
Yes, Niall. Thank you.
You want to continue where you finished off?
I will, yeah.
Okay.
Where I was at was we were talking about queuing, and obviously the okay, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about this now. What we were talking about in terms of queuing is that it's very important that you'll have seen the queuing that goes on inside in the shops, and that is very well regulated by a lot of the shops that have remained open. But once you come outside the shop there, you know, we would have concerns about that, and we want to meet with each individual business. And the plan we have here is that no queue will be allowed to exceed the facade of the building, so that, you know, and overlap into the business next door to it. So in that regard, we have devised, you know, standardized signage that you can see there on the screen, which will clearly demonstrate there where the start and end of the queue is. And our staff will be liaising with the business people to organize getting these signs, and that, you know, that they will have to comply with this measure, you know, because otherwise the footpaths, you know, you still have passing pedestrian traffic on the footpath as well as the queuing. So it's very important that it's regulated. And the last point I was making then was on the street furniture, the fact that we have removed some of the parking, we have increased the width of what we would say the footpaths in the public realm, and it certainly will, there will be opportunities for street furniture to be utilized there, which we hope will, you know, support the business community as well in the town. Each one of them will be licensed and will be looked at on an individual basis. And that sums me up there, Brian. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks, Frank. So just question here, Paul. When do we expect the Safe Destination Programme to start for hospitality? Did you hear me there, Moira?
Well, as I understand, the hospitality training has already commenced, the pilot, and that there's 120 on the hospitality side that training is ongoing. It's starting today with over 120 staff registered to undertake the training, so that's ongoing at the moment.
Okay, so look, as the chamber, we can get out that information on an email to the participants today, and that's excellent. Just another point from Ciara O'Grady that KTIF have circulated link with the chamber for expressions of interest for the Safe Destination Programme. So that will be circulated through the group. And just a point to note, you must register interest by June the 9th, is the information I have here now. So we'll get that through Paul, hopefully later on today, to the membership of the chamber. So look, that has question bar run dry. So thank you very much, Moira and Tomas and Frank and Mike.
Could I just clarify again? I suppose the Open for Business initiative, there is the helpline 1800 807 102. There's also a link on the Kerry Coco website, Kerry County Council website, again, and there's a banner. It is open for business. You can go in there and you can register your business.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant.
And if you really just can't work it out, ring the helpline and we'll sort you. I suppose that's the main message. We'll find where you should be connected to.
All over to yourself.
Okay, thanks, Niall. Thanks very much, Moira. Really appreciate you joining us this morning. And thank you also for all the questions. I hope you found the briefing informative and that you will have gained a perspective on the work that has been going on in the background on your behalf. Thanks again for tuning in today. And remember, the presentation will be available to you on the Chamber's website, killarney.ie/resources. Next week, we will be joined by senior management of the INEC Killarney, who will be updating us on recent research and its impact on Killarney, also on their plans for the remainder of the year and going forward. Until then, have a good week, stay safe, and we will see you all back here next week at 11 a.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.